From JA to UK to LA and everywhere else now, this is a podcast strictly influenced by Jamaican music, brought to you by Eric Kohler and Junor Francis. Well, if you're driving in your car or you're sitting home alone, the Junior entertain you on his microphone. The history of LA Ska. Yeah, hear stories from a guest while we all have a blast. From LA to Jamaica, it's in the podcast. The history of LA Ska. Of LA Ska, yeah. It's the history. Yes, it is. Of LA Ska. History of LA Ska, yeah. It's the history. Yes, it is. Of LA Ska. Of LA Ska. It's the history of LA Ska. One more time, yeah. It's the history of LA Ska.
Welcome to the History of LA Ska one-on-one sessions. I'm your host, alongside our good friend and producer, Eric Kohler. This series celebrates the rocksteady, ska, and vintage reggae scene in Southern California through insightful conversations with legends and modern-day talent, including those behind the scene. And we have an abundance of people working behind the scene to make this a success. And for this episode, we welcome our newly found friends and fellow Jamaican music fanatics and supporters, JJ Loy and Matt Wixson of Hornpod Podcast. Of Hornpod. Yeah, Hornpod. Hornpod, no podcast.
Hornpod.
Hornpod Ska Podcast. Right?
Yes.
Right. So it's short for podcast. And it's a ska podcast. And the review is wonderful. Great review. As a matter of fact, some of the pundits are saying it's one of the best in the country. So congratulations to you guys.
Look at that.
Wow.
Thank you for that. Yes.
Look at that. And this is obviously very special and likely the first Ska Podcast crossover episode. JJ,
Oh, I
and
wonder.
Matt, that sound accurate? Maybe.
I don't know. Yeah, it sounds like it's first for me for sure.
Yes, indeed.
My wife last night might have called me a nerd for being excited for this one, but I love it.
Oh no, I'm super excited.
Look, it's only so often you get to hang out with people who like ska as much as we do, and also like we have currently have some of the same ways of interacting with it, particularly podcasting. So like this is kind of it's going to be a good rap session.
Well, and
Absolutely.
Junior, you're on the radio, right? I did a ska show on the radio for a long time too. So anybody that's willing to like put their time into like really spending a lot of time commitment, being on the radio and all, it's a certain kind of fan, right?
Eric used to host a radio show as well. Havana to Kingston, we play a lot of
But
ska,
Junior, how many hours a week are you still on the radio, whether terrestrial or online?
currently 7 weekly.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay.
I'm doing a show. I have a 15-minute feature in Argentina as well.
Wow.
So just under 7.5.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
Well,
Staying busy.
the week has 7 days and 24 hours. I'm still looking for work.
still,
Yeah.
and definitely want to wish you guys happy anniversary, right? So Hornpod, you guys are celebrating anniversary, right?
Yeah, 5 years.
Yeah, we turned 5
Wonderful.
on Thanksgiving.
Wow. So you started Hornpod the Thanksgiving prior to COVID, right? So 2019.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
The way to think about it.
just all we can. I'm not saying what caused what, but our podcast was released at the end of 2019, and 4 months later, the entire planet was being ravaged by a pandemic.
Oh.
So there.
Yeah. So you guys might have had. I mean, most of the podcasts. I mean, ours for sure started during COVID. But you guys might. You think you're the one that started that's still active prior to COVID?
Well, there was. I was actually trying to look into this because I didn't listen to others like active ska podcasts, but
right.
there was a talk, or maybe still is a talk of the ska.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And I discovered, and that podcast started maybe like less than a year before us, I think, though. And then
I honestly
prior
don't know
to
who's
that,
still out
though,
there. It's been a while since I've checked out like the competition, quote unquote.
Yeah,
I don't know who's still doing regular episodes. I don't know if we do regular episodes really.
we
Like
we are we are the least we're
we're
the
really
most
spotty.
irregular.
Yeah.
almost irregular. Yeah,
Uh,
Junior and I try to do a couple times a month. I know that
Nice.
Aaron Carnes, he's
he
still,
stays busy, yeah.
yeah, correct.
Oh, dude, you guys though, you guys have like big interviews on the regular. You guys have like big
Hmm.
names, long interviews. You guys, I don't know. I'm a little jealous of your back catalog. I'm really looking forward to the book you guys are gonna write based on all these
Hmm.
interviews you've got because it is you got something here. Yeah.
Junior can definitely write a book. But yeah, no, let's give a shout out to the other podcasts. I mean, Mark Wasserman, who has been a guest on
Hmm.
your
Oh
podcast
yeah, yeah.
before. He's a friend, and I love his Ska Boom
He
podcast.
comes and goes, but when
Accompanies
he's
his
there,
books.
they're
Yeah,
amazing
yeah,
episodes. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Well, I was trying to do some kind of like looking into everything that has gone on online in ska in the last 5 years because I feel like when the pandemic hit, so much of the ska scene turned online, like so much of everything else did. And so like podcasts naturally were going to be a thing, I think, that came up. And when I started like just putting this data down so I could talk about it later, in September of 2020, Ska Boom podcast was launched. The next
Okay.
month, Ska Punk International was launched.
Wow.
In January, In Defense of Ska was launched. In February, Ska Dads was launched. In April of 2021, Checkered Past was launched.
Wait, Checker Pass wasn't around first?
No.
Interesting.
Unless there was another
Oh,
one
I'm
before that,
tripping.
unless
Okay,
there's a
okay.
different one. There might have been a different one. I
And
don't
then,
know.
Right,
and
yeah,
then,
okay.
I feel like there's another ska podcast
well,
out there with a
there's
similar
Matt
name.
Best on the Upbeat.
Yeah, there was that one too.
Right,
Like I
right,
don't
right,
know.
right, right.
I was missing some too. Yes,
Yeah,
but like there was
Okay.
like just like a block where for like 6 months almost there was a new
yeah.
ska
And then
podcast every month.
we came in July of 2020 as an IGTV type of
Mm.
series first that the Junior hosted.
Right. And that was
Um,
Right.
like you guys were doing stuff through the Grammys too, right?
we were, yeah, at the
Yeah.
Grand Museum, correct. Yeah. And then another podcast which happened during COVID and then they stopped, but it's called Reggae Pod Clash with Roger Rivas
Yeah.
from Aggrolites and like Devin, formerly of the Expanders. They had one that was really great. A little more
Yeah,
on the
those I
reggae
mean those
tip.
guys were so technical
Yeah,
and like deep knowledge of like Jamaican tunes
yeah,
and like
Yeah, you're not kidding, man. They really, yeah,
those conversations like you can't get there's nothing like the
right.
yeah.
conversations they were having.
I know.
Yes, that one, yeah, that's sadly missed because they really had some legends on that we haven't talked
True. It's true. Yeah.
about. Mm.
So why don't we start? Because this is for Junior and my benefit as much as maybe our listeners. But Matt and JJ, share a little bit about both of your backgrounds. What you have done and kind of your entry point into this Jamaican music, so to speak.
JJ's older, he can go first.
It's an age
Let's see.
discrimination.
Our story begins. Let's see. Have you guys read the Bible? Um, no. Let's see. I'm one of those kids that got turned on to like local ska punk. Probably was the first time that I really I heard the term ska being thrown around. And once it like got solidified, I realized like looking back, there has always been. I've always loved this kind of music. What was that Julian Lennon hit from like the early 80s that's totally a ska song?
Yeah.
It was like my favorite song when I was 5. I was like all these like ska-ish tunes.
The
Like I don't
signs
know,
were
like
there.
I just feel like when I look back, like ska was always kind of like my vibe, and but no, I officially got into it probably, third wave like a lot of people my age, and just kind of like as the wave was crashing, I just kind of got more into it. I just kept like digging further back, and I became like a real, I think, like a ska nerd in the early 2000s, and once I got like a pretty decent record collection, well, not records, I collect digitally. I'll out myself. I'm not one of those 45 guys. But once I got like a real back catalog of good music together, and I think kind of a good barometer of what's good and bad in this scene, I got myself a little radio show. I guess I did a podcast first. I did Ska Blah Blah. Back in the day, I wanted to interview a lot of my favorite musicians back then, and well, they're still my favorite musicians.
And what year did you start that podcast?
Ooh, I'm trying to think. Was that 2004? Probably.
I want to say it was later than that, I think,
Okay.
wasn't it?
But that
Well, it
was
started-
early. But that was still early on.
That was before like streaming was a normal thing, though. That was like
Yeah.
podcast was barely a word. It was
It was iPod podcasting. Yeah. It was before the iPhone for sure. But yeah, so yeah, it wasn't too much before
maybe
I
it
got
was.
the radio show. But yeah, I guess that podcast kind of got my foot in the door. I kind of showed some people around town that I was into this kind of thing, and so yeah, I did the radio show for 11 years, and I was kind
And
of
for the record, what station?
88.1 KDHX. I would love to say a lot of nice things about them. They were a really great station back in the day, but we are officially boycotting them right now due to a lot of political things. So, if you want to look into that, it's a fascinating story that I don't even know all the details to tell.
That's in.
And what
that's in-
city?
Yeah, what city?
St. Louis, Missouri. Yeah. Yeah, so I did that for 11 years, and started kind of getting this idea of what a good ska podcast would be, and I just couldn't think of a better host to help me out with it than Matt Wixson here, and luckily he was completely on board, pretty much the same page too, and so I ditched the radio show, and this is what I'm doing now.
So how did you two meet?
We have never met. We're actually going to meet in a couple weeks here, probably.
Well, so how did you know about each other to ask if he'd be interested?
I mean, Matt Wixson's infamous. Yeah, well, he's just a big character in the scene, but no, he actually did an opening theme for my radio show. So I interviewed him back in the Ska Blah Blah days. So like, yeah, I've always kind of had.
You
my
also
eye
told
on
me
Matt.
that some of my music was delightful to you when you were doing the radio show because it was weird enough to keep it fresh.
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm always but yeah, no, he's a huge character. He's got a lot of opinions, a lot of hot takes, and I think they're only getting hotter as the years go on.
Yeah, that's me.
That's him.
And then got it. And so you launched, as we talked about earlier, in 2019. So Matt, what's your backstory?
So I was 13 in the summer of 1997, and the Boss Tones and the Real Big Fish and Goldfinger and Say Ferris got me. And I stayed, I just like became, I mean, there was like a couple of years there where I was like, I know all of the ska bands and I can count them. There's like 8, 9 bands, and it's like the Hippos and like Smash Mouth might have been on the list. I don't know. And like as I got more, I finally got into like I found local bands towards the end of high school and just discovered, I mean, the internet was kind of my way in after that. And in 2005, I had been playing guitar for a couple of years and decided to start playing music on stage. And it was a bumpy start, but I turned into some kind of comedy version of a Dan Podcast or something. I say comedy as cover because otherwise it was just a bad version of Dan Podcast. And that turned into a punk band. And I was also in the ska-core band from Connecticut called the Flaming Tsunamis for a year. And we toured all over the US and also did some 3 weeks opening for Sonic Boom 6 in the UK.
And what was your role in those bands?
I was the keyboardist in the Flaming Tsunamis and the singer and guitarist, songwriter of Matt Wixson's Flying Circus after that.
Nice.
In 2018, I stopped playing music and also began doing improv comedy a whole lot. And I didn't stop writing music, but I stopped playing music. And I started doing improv comedy. And then a year and a half into doing improv, JJ asked if I would be interested in doing a ska podcast, since I wasn't really doing anything else like engage with people with music anymore,
I
other than
I
just
never
being
said anything
online.
like that.
Nah, you might have. I think you're like, you've got
That
nothing
you're not
better to
doing
do.
anything creative anymore,
Hey,
Matt. Why don't you?
why don't you stay engaged? I think was your word. Like, don't fucking just disappear. Get out there. No, I don't. I'm putting words in your mouth probably. I don't care. I don't know if I might not have said yes if I hadn't been doing improv at that point because it's really given me the confidence to trust that I can say shit and it'll be okay by the end of the sentence. And I didn't used to have that, but like I have that now. So then we're doing the podcast, and then during the pandemic, uh, I launched the Still Stubborn thing with King Django. That was my idea, and we got a whole bunch of people to cover a bunch of great American ska and reggae songs.
Oh,
And now I'm kind of making music again, and everything JJ said about my opinions is true. They're hot and getting hotter.
And did you guys meet some of the musicians and people from the scene through Matt through your bands and JJ through your radio shows? Was that kind of the entry point into meeting some of these folks that you've since interviewed, or?
I'm trying to think. Like I one of my favorite things about doing the radio show was that KDHX was really good. They had a really good in studio or a studio and doing live performances and all that and getting the cameras out and making a big deal of having bands there. So I loved getting like Jeff Rosenstock coming through. I hosted the Scholars reunion. Yeah, I got to meet a ton of people. In fact, it almost like made me like kind of like, oh, I don't even want to go to the show tonight. I just had like my own private performance like right in front of me, like it was just too killer. But yeah, I'm trying to think if any of that like led to actual direct interviews for us. No, in fact, Matt's become like our main booker the last few years. I strike out all the time and he gets them. He gets the guests.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, yeah, a lot of the people are people that I've known, like I played a show with in 2008 or more recently, maybe. Or just people that like I said, I think that I have a very online presence. Like a very just online life maybe, which is not ideal. But like that's how I know a lot of the people that I know is because of our interactions online, and most of that is through ska and reggae music. And like I've never met Victor Rice, but I've met him online. So like and like we're friendly online, like we can chit chat, like we have a relationship. So like in a sense, it's a little bit of the people that I've met through music, but it's also just people that are in the online places I am.
And I'm sure you guys know, like you spend a couple hours with these people chit-chatting about like your favorite thing. You may not know them, but like when you come away with some of these interviews, it's just like, oh man, like we're friends.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like we did so many episodes with the Slackers, and I'm just like, I have a kind of relationship with these guys that like I never had before. Like I don't know. And maybe they couldn't pick me out of a lineup, whatever. Like I still got that.
No, and I think, and that's a great point. And Junior, it's probably something that you realized early on through your radio shows, but since for the most part there's not mainstream platforms, right, for a lot of these musicians and singers,
Right.
from the ska scene, so to speak, so the fact that there are now these podcasts and books and documentaries that have come out, it's a big deal, right, for these these musicians.
We're the media outlets for these small fish, yeah. No, but I'm sure like you guys get this like vibe too. Like when sometimes you're trying to book an episode and you get like a really cool guest, and then you find out, oh, all 5 other ska shows have this guest this month, and it's like, oh shit, we just got like what is it called when they junket? We just got junkified.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh, there's a ska junket. Yeah.
Yeah, we became part of a press release.
I know. But yeah,
all right, go take this around the ska circuit, the podcast ska circuit.
Right. And on one hand, it could be a bummer, but second hand, you know what? I think that band, right, or that band's team has their stuff together and they're doing really what a lot of bands should be doing, right? So there is that
Exactly.
flip side to it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Also, that's really only a problem for the hosts. Like that's not anybody, nobody else cares
Yeah.
that their favorite artist or this new band that there is like, being interviewed 4 times. That's fine
right,
with everybody
right.
else,
Yeah, because
except the people that are trying to do the interview.
right.
Right.
So are the
People
same
are
people
trying
watching
to.
the same podcast?
That's
I
a good,
wonder.
I would think that they're well, I listen to a lot of them, but it's a good question. I mean, I would think so. But I guess we can take a survey and find out.
Sometimes listening to other shows just like psychs me out too much though. Like or especially like someone else's interview with someone that I'm
Oh,
about to
sure.
do. Like
Yeah.
I feel like it'll just train wreck me. Yeah, I have to come at it with my own curiosities, and
Yeah.
that's
I,
in fact that's something I say to Matt all the time. Is like we know what we know, and then we're curious about everything else. It's like we come at it with our experience, and then what we want to know. That's probably what the audience wants to know too.
I don't know. We interviewed Daniel Rachel, who wrote that
yeah,
Two Tone
that was a
book.
really great one.
You guys did
Oh
too.
yeah, thank you. And yes, and like and he was on In Defense of Ska months before he was
Correct.
on our
Yep.
show.
Yep.
And I don't normally go and like listen to other people's interviews, and for kind of the same reason as JJ. Like it'll like as an interviewer myself, I kind of find it frustrating if it's like I'm going to have access to this person, and you're asking those questions, not my questions.
Sure. Sure.
Um, but like I listened to the Daniel Rachel interview that In Defense of Scott did, mostly to see like and I had a little bit of a competitive streak in me, honestly. And I was like, you know what? I want to see like what my criticisms are and see if I could like because I know that I have like for better or worse, I'm gonna have my criticisms. But like I'm gonna use them to try to motivate me and make sure like I hit the points that I'm hearing them miss if there's like or whatever it is. Um but I can't do that very often
Right.
because I will it'll also like it's not I just can't be in somebody else's headspace like that.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
how?
I get it.
Oh, I
But
wanted to flip it on you guys. I want to ask you guys about like how you guys got started.
Mr.
Hell yeah.
Junior.
No, I think you should. I think your wife told you it would be a good idea to stay occupied.
Well,
Am I
yeah.
right?
Right.
I
Yes.
think she was a motivational force.
Right. Behind continue starting the podcast side of things. Yeah.
No, she regrets because
No.
it's taking up so much of your time.
Exactly. Um,
I know what that's
well,
like.
I know. But my quick backstory, while Junior then thinks of his, but I'm a SoCal native. I got into ska and reggae. Basically, my gateways were some of the typical ones, UB40, Culture Club, The Police, right? And then from there, I discovered Marley and Tosh and Still Pulse and English Beat, and then the Scatolites, and kind of then ended up going backwards. That was pretty much the 80s. And then early 90s, I discovered some of the traditional scene here, like the steady beat scene. And once I saw, Hepcat and Jump with Joey and Ocean 11, it was kind of over, so to speak. And around that same time, myself and a good friend of mine from high school started Reggae Nucleus magazine. It's around 94. And through the magazine is where I met Junior and a lot of current friends from the scene. But, the magazine, basically, we interviewed people. We highlighted, reggae and ska throughout Southern California, and interviewed everyone from Toots and the Maytals to Joey Altruda to Shaggy.
Oh yeah.
That was around for just under 10 years.
And you say magazine? Is that a proper magazine or like a
Oh
zine
yeah.
Oh
zine?
yeah,
Yeah,
Wow,
I know. It's
cool. All right.
a proper magazine. Um, and we did the program guide for the annual Bob Marley Day Festival, that used to be in Long Beach, and Sierra Nevada World Music Festival. And so
Oh yeah.
it was incredible. I learned a lot from that, but also through the magazine and through Steady Beat, Junior and I also started working with local bands and some of the legends. And behind me here are some of the posters, but really being able to work with the ska legends that I learned a lot from Junior here, were some of the highlights of my life and career, and working with, Derek Morgan with the early version of the Aggrolites, and Prince Buster, and Junior, who else? Eric Monty Morris,
The
right?
list is endless.
Yeah, Rico Rodriguez, a lot of the legends throughout the 2000s as well.
Yeah.
Some of those shows with
So you produce the shows?
well, so some of them, yeah, but then some of them um, we would work with the legends and some of the local bands, and some of them were steady beat shows. So some of them were like co-promotions, some of them were just, where we would work with the legends, and Lewis would get the backing bands, and then that spiraled into Junior starting some of the Ska Mania shows, which were a lot of the legends, from Stranger Cold to Junior. Who else? Melodian,
Monte Morris, Stranger
Monty
Cold,
Morris,
the Clarendonians,
yeah.
the
Uh,
Cables, the Tenors, the Pioneers.
I mean, incredible
Sorry
amount.
Damn.
if I leave a couple of guys.
And then, we would, and then that also led to me and a friend of mine, Sean Heitkemper, who I met in college and at KLO and radio. That led to me having a radio show called the Havana Kingston Connection, and that was from basically 2001 to 2005. And I was always, and still am, amazed by the connection between Cuba and Jamaica.
Hell yeah! But based on the title alone, I want to listen to that radio show, man.
I have some old tapes and things. Yeah, but
Digitize them.
Yeah, put them online. I want to hear this.
I really need to. But I love that. And then that same Sean, friend of mine, and I started managing the Aggrolites. We did that for a few years, and the Lions, and a few other groups from the scene.
Love the Lions.
Yeah, and then really, as we talked about earlier, Junior and I started doing these Grammy Museum panel discussions. First one was in 2017, and then we did one again in 2019, and we were going to do the third one, and then COVID happened, and that's when we started the Instagram account of History of LA Ska, and then the subsequent podcast series. So
Yeah.
it was, it's continuation, and on my mind, it's a continuation of kind of what the magazine would have been, but also
Mhm.
the interview series, and it 100% would not be possible without Junior, and Junior's connections and passion and experience in the music. Junior, your story is a lot more exciting. Please do share.
Oh yeah.
Where do I start? You'd have to ask me a question. I don't know where to start.
Riding a donkey in Jamaica with a transistor radio.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. So
That's where all the good stories start.
It's true.
yeah, riding a donkey. My mom left, was part of the Windrush. She went to England. So I remember she promised that whatever I need, anything you want, just write her a letter now. I remember I saw this guy with a transistor. He was working in upstate New York, and I guess transistors started coming in the States. And so I saw him walking around, and in Jamaica. I said, man, this is amazing. So I wrote to my mom and tell her, wow, I want a radio. She was living in Manchester, England at the time. So she went shopping, told me she couldn't find any transistor radio that she could walk around with. But she had a radio in the house, but none to walk around. And so she said we should go to Mandeville, which is the capital of Manchester, where I grew up. And remember, I went to Universal. My grandmother took me because I wasn't old enough to Universal. And the proprietor said, wow, he was amazed that I heard about the radio, transistor. So he said he had 10. They all went like this. But he said, young man, don't worry. I ordered some more from Kingston. So I wrote to my mom and I got one. So I think that we had the second transistor at that time.
Wow.
There were radios in the community, but not transistor. So I was number 2. And so then I started, that opened the door for me to hear all the kind of music. And it wasn't, I think it was ska. It wasn't ska. It was more R&B, Jamaican R&B, where they were mostly imitating the American singers. because I think officially ska really started after the Scatolites, when, Scatolite drummer changed the beat and
Right.
really made it
Early
Jamaican.
60s.
Yes, right. So this is how I got involved and started listening to the music before transitioning into ska. So whatever they played on the radio, I would hear. So that kind of gave me a leg up. Most of the other kids didn't have a radio. Most of the people in the community didn't have a radio. But it's Friday night and Saturday night, you would hear more Jamaican music. But during the daytime and during the week, they would play more American music. As I often say, he who pays the piper calls the shot. So the American radio, the American record companies would, I guess, push their record, and people, the radio station would play most of the American records.
So
Friday
did
night
a
and
lot of people have
Saturday.
record players and just not radios back then?
No, man, no record player. Couldn't
Oh,
afford it.
really?
I
So
couldn't afford a record either. But you hear records know when they had dance and picnic. But otherwise, no. Because we didn't have electricity at that time. So they had
Really?
to have those.
But Junior, that's because you were in the hills, right?
No, man, half of Jamaica, 2/3 of Jamaica didn't have electricity.
The 2/3 didn't. Wow. Okay.
Wow.
But the cities like Mandeville, our town, yeah, and a
Right.
few other places.
Right.
Uh,
And Junior, and I've heard you say this before, but I always love this. Matt and JJ, I asked Junior if he saw any live music, and he said only two. But Junior, what were the two that you saw?
yeah. Your memory is sharper than the two-edged sword. So my stepmother was living in Kingston, and I would go visit her. She claimed me as her son. And I remember my half-brother said, "Oh, there's a concert tonight, so let's go." And so I can't remember all the bands, but the Techniques at that time, Slim Smith was the lead singer. And it may have been Delroy Wilson. I told
Wow.
about 3 bands.
Wow.
So I got to see, seating wasn't that good, but I got to see the Techniques. And
Wow.
next time out now, my mom was in Jamaica, and she was visiting. I hadn't seen her for many, many years. So now I had some disposable funds, and Roy Shirley was playing in Mandeville, my town.
whoa.
So
I hear he puts on a show.
Yeah.
like
Like going to
nothing
church.
you won't see, yeah. So I got to see Roy Shirley. Those are the only two.
Mm.
But
That's wild.
yeah, Roy Shirley was good. He was that. I mean, it's indescribable.
Oh,
You
man.
can't describe that experience.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of challenges. For instance, went to the concert to see Roy Shirley. I couldn't get back home, but there was no transportation.
Mm.
Well, I can't sleep in the town. And then fortunately, the guy who took me to the concert said he can't guarantee that he'll come back for me. But I remember I was standing up in Mandeville. I saw he was riding a motorcycle, and he said, and it was like,
So, but Junior, but do you think that based on that experience and based on the impact, right, that the transistor radio had on you, is that when you said, "I'm going to be on the radio," and then
yeah, because I remember with Delroy Wilson was my favorite, and he was the Lord of Ska, and Ska was now Ska that evolved into rocksteady.
Mm.
And I remember Delroy Wilson, his teacher was giving him a hard time, his principal. And so I think he decided to leave school and just go sing. It was all over the place. And he was missing classes. So his teacher gave him a hard time. So I really was, he is a few years ahead of me. He is a few years my senior. And so I figured if I can sing like Delroy, I could quit school and go to Kingston and start making records. Because that's all I was interested in. Because, after I've got my radio music sort of became my surrogate mother. Everything was just
Music.
But one day I said, you really can't sing. I mean, let's face it.
Who said that to you?
You don't have the voice.
I think you said that to yourself.
And so I decided at that time that, but I want to be in music like Duke Reed. You have a record store.
Uh-huh.
He has a sound system. He's doing everything that has to do with music 7 days a week. But I figure I want to be on the radio so that I would be a radio host. I'd have a record store. I have a sound system. So it would be my life would be encompassed by music round the clock.
Love it.
So that's when I decided, yeah, I'm going to become a broadcaster.
So did you do radio in Jamaica?
No, but I started collecting. My first couple of 2 songs I collected. And I had to make the choice between buying beef patties, back then I used to eat meat, or buying a record. So about a record, I said, I'm going to need this record when I travel, because I knew I would travel. My dad was in England. He too was part of the Windrush. So I figured I was going to travel one day. And my aunt had migrated to the States. So I started collecting records. The first record I bought, the sun was so hot and we were in Mandeville. We, had the car windows up and the record then like this.
Oh, no.
So I said, all right, no more records. And that was a tough decision. You buy a party or you buy a record.
Yeah.
I sacrifice and bought the record. That was my learning experience. In terms of collecting, starting my collection. I still have the 45.
The bent one.
Posterity.
Yeah. I love that.
So you moved to England after that?
Oh, no. So
No?
from the country now, Manchester, I moved to Kingston for a short period before I migrated. My port of entry was from Kingston, Brooklyn, New York, Brooklyn.
Okay.
And I stayed there for about 13 years.
Okay.
I figured my life was becoming useless since I want to be on the radio. I was in America. My brother opened a record store and I used to run the store. And then I made contact with a lot of radio hosts, people in general, but specifically radio hosts. A lot of radio hosts would come by and ask me to get them music for their show. And so I thought, well, one guy actually opened the door for me to, join him on his radio show. And I remember I woke up early in the morning, still tired, and it didn't turn out so good. I had no experience. I had a selection down to a science, but in terms of what to say on the radio, I thought I failed catastrophically. I need to go to school to learn how to become a broadcaster.
And you did.
And so after a couple of years, then I moved to Los Angeles and I did my associate in radio and television because I wanted to present this stuff right.
Yeah.
Professional.
Yeah, so I figured moving to California to give me a chance to really focus. I wouldn't have anything else to do but focus on work and radio.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
And Junior, maybe you may not be Duke Reed, but you are a DJ both in clubs and on the radio, a podcast host, and an MC like no other MC.
Oh yeah, the work on the Supernova Festival. I love seeing that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you are in a promoter.
Duke Reed never emceed the Supernova Festival, so.
And Junior, and you don't need a pistol and gun by your side, right?
He doesn't need it, but he has it just in case.
Yes, so that's pretty much how all that started. So I thanks to my my mom and grandmother and grandparents and friends who paved the way for me.
Yeah,
I think that love started when I got my transistor radio. I'm gonna be on the radio.
I love it. Yeah, it's like you manifested it. It's like you wanted to surround yourself in the music you love, and it might have taken some time, but man, you made it. Like you are the thing you set out to be, right?
That's like a sense of purpose that I've never really had. I've ended up with a lot of wonderful things in my life, but it's not because I went after them. Like you were like, I know what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. It's supposed to be music, and I'm supposed to be broadcasting it.
Right,
and then you went and did it. Like that's so simple, and it's great to see that that's how it works for some people.
it's true.
But I wouldn't encourage anyone to follow their dream as I did, because I'm in New York. I left. I had a daughter. My daughter just came from Jamaica a year or two after I left. that was very sad. My parents, friends,
Mm-hmm.
was part of a broader community. I was
Yeah.
in New York. Tremendous happiness. I don't think I knew exactly what I was doing, but and I wouldn't encourage anyone to make that kind of sacrifice.
Right. Yeah.
Radio.
Understood. Gentlemen,
Sometimes I think it's madness.
why don't we talk about some highlights over the course of the years with each of our podcasts?
Ooh.
I know it's tough. I know it's tough to narrow down, right? All this, and you don't want to leave anyone out, but you guys do a lot of things that are unique, but sometimes you have guests, right, on Hornpod, but also sometimes you just have themes.
Yeah.
Talk
I'd
about
say in the early days it was a lot more just me and Matt shooting the shit, and now we really do try to have like an extra person in there to
Yeah,
add
we
some
did a
perspective.
lot of episodes before we had a guest, I
Yeah.
think. Which is weird to think about now.
Yeah.
No, I mean I think it's healthy too. Like I wouldn't mind trying that some more too. Like I think
Yeah.
but yeah, like
But
having a
but
guest
I
is
also
always nice.
I feel like at this point we've had our chances to voice all of our opinions,
Yeah,
and
that's part of it,
we
yeah.
might as well bring other people on board because it doesn't have to just be us. But yeah, like we kind of started the podcast to try to talk about. We didn't want to be engaged with the present necessarily. Not that we're against the present, but to talk about Scott in like a bigger picture. And so we can talk about, like, we did an episode about how reggae evolved into drum and bass and dubstep. Like, that's not an obvious thing for a ska podcast, but it's part of the history of Jamaican music that interests me.
Indeed.
Well, and it's weird because it's stuff, it's other music that we love because we got into ska. Like it's
Right.
and so like to draw those connections only like is satisfying to be like, yeah, I mean it may not seem like our scene, but to me and Matt, like I don't know, it's our music too, like
Mhm.
I don't know, some highlights for me, I think are the more like scholarly episodes we've done where we've had authors and like Dan Neely, I don't know if he counts as an author, but like he wrote that dissertation for his doctorate on Mento music
On Mento, yeah.
and talked to us about that, and like authors like
Heather Augustine,
Ken,
right?
well, Heather Augustine, yeah, I was trying to think of
Yeah. Kenneth
Kenneth
Partridge.
thank you. Yeah, like
Mark
just being
Wasserman.
Mark Wasserman, yeah, being able to like get these people that have like really done the homework, because like Matt and I have opinions, and maybe we've done a little bit of scholarly research, but these are the real deals, and like I don't know, I really love getting to be a home for that kind of content.
It makes me anyway feel like where you have a little bit of dignity, a little more dignity when we have somebody that's like had an editor and a publisher involved with their thoughts, like it's not just me and my friends slinging opinions and half remembered things that they read in a badly researched history book from the 90s, like but yeah, like I think like one of my favorite episodes was not too long ago when we had Victor Rice like basically explain from start to finish how he would approach making a track,
Yeah, I
which
enjoyed that one.
is like as a person that makes a track from time to time, like, and who knows a lot of people who do the same, like I'm so proud that we got to have a guy like that share information like that on our feed.
The fun part about that is that, I mean, I interviewed Victor Rice years and years ago, and when I asked him if he wanted, this was back when I had a blog for my previous podcast. I was like, "Do you have any ideas of something you might want to do?" And this was an idea he had back then. Even like he wants to share his information. He wants people to be able to record the Victor Rice way, And then in that episode, we find out that he's actually like teaching at a college and stuff. These ideas, like this is a man that wants to teach this thing to as many people as possible. And like, I'd love to have the platform for him to do that.
You guys also did one some point during COVID. I remember listening to one about Carlos Malcolm, right?
Oh, that was one of our very first ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that one too.
That's another thing. Yeah, we love kind of highlighting Godfathers that maybe you don't hear the names too much, or were kind of even like a little different back then. You know, we were kind of pointing out back then that like yes, there's the Scatolites kind of ska, and then there was like the um
Byron Lee.
Byron Lee, thank you. But then
Yeah.
there's almost this like third rail of the Carlos Malcolm, you know, like he's not either one. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
I love
Carlos
that kind of stuff.
Malcolm is doing music with Western Standard Time now.
Correct.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's getting like a little renaissance, isn't he?
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah. And we had the pleasure of Junior, what was that in 99 when early on when Junior and I were doing some shows with Legends, we worked with Carlos Malcolm. He was living here in San Diego
Right.
for a while. So we worked with him, when we had Club Scabawa for a couple months in 1999. So he did a couple shows there. And then we had the pleasure of interviewing him on.
Yeah, I think I watched that episode with you guys and
Yeah.
him. Yeah, he was like in Florida, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
He
it is.
was. Right. And then how did the series with the Slackers come about? Because you guys do
Well,
that.
that's all Matt.
God, I think it was Dave's idea,
Well, yeah.
actually. I think it was Dave Hilliard that kind of put the whole thing, pitched it to us initially. Um, and that was one of his many ways of keeping the Slackers engaged with their fan base during the pandemic. Because like they'd started putting out those rarities on Bandcamp every so often, like from the different eras. And Dave was like, "Hey, we why don't we talk about like why don't we have the like would you want to be part of our like talk about the Slackers sometime?" And like so we kind of spitballed about ideas and we're like, well, we can just start going through these compilation or like these rarities compilations and kind of talk about the era and we can kind of go like use that as a way to promote the comps and also kind of tell the story because it's
Yeah.
all chronological. And so that turned into like I think we did 6 episodes initially, but then
Originally, yeah.
we kept doing like we did a couple more when they put out Don't
Plague
Let the
Doctor.
Sunlight Fool You.
Oh, right,
We
yeah.
did, and then we did an episode of Plague Doctor with Larry McDonald and Dave.
Yes.
Uh, and I guess like every so
And
often now
I
they're
watched
just
your
like
interview
you
with Larry
wanna.
McDonald.
Yeah. Larry's
Sorry to interrupt.
Larry's a
such a living legend.
joyful man. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Love him.
An institution, a foundation, Larry.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I would like to shout out, not because I'm proud of myself for doing this as much as I really love this playlist I put together of this is Larry McDonald on Spotify because he's
Oh.
played on so many
Wow,
diverse
that's
tracks in
good.
his career.
Mhm.
You'd be blown away to hear all these things side by side, and I got as much as I could on there.
I'm gonna check that playlist. That's great.
Yeah, Larry McDonald's amazing.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Not
you're
just as a musician, as a human being as well. The times I've interacted with him.
and
Yeah.
talk about being active, right? For his age too.
Oh man.
It's incredible the
Yeah.
No
energy
stopping.
he has.
So
I mean,
the original idea for the Slackers thing was that they were going to have their own podcast feed. Even the idea was for them to have their own show, and only because some things fell through, like the day before launch with our podcast platform, I don't know what went wrong. They just threw it away. I guess they like deleted the account. So we quickly were like, "Hey, Slackers, is it okay if we just use our feed and keep on the right schedule?" And they were like, "Sure." And so it's like it's technically its own show, but it's like it's got its own art and
it's got its own
name.
graphic, yeah.
It's got its own episode numbering,
Right.
but yeah, it's
Yeah,
on the
we-
main Hornpod thread or feed.
As far as I'm concerned, and I think JJ feels about the same. Like it's more that's like the Slackers podcast that we help them with.
Yeah, whenever they want to do an episode,
whenever
yeah.
they have something they want to talk about, we help them make an episode.
Right.
And that's what things I can't forget is that's what the Slackers do with Hornpods
Yeah.
help.
Yeah. That's super cool. Yeah, I enjoy those a lot. So
Well, and similar to that, some of my favorite episodes are when I discovered years ago that Westbound Train is very easy to be friends with. You can just really sit and talk to them, especially if you got the shared love of music.
yeah.
And
Obi's a great guy.
we've done a couple episodes with Rich Greco and Obi. Rich and us talked about ska jazz. We like really dug deep into what it's like to play ska jazz, the differences
Very
between
cool.
the East and the West Coast, and it's just such a good conversation. I have actually gone back and listened to that episode, even though I'm sick of all of our episodes from editing
Yeah.
them. Like,
Honestly, conversations with Rich in particular have been very like they've really helped me understand jazz in
yeah,
general, like
yeah.
through ska. Like that's one of the other things that ska has given me. It
Right.
gave me a taste for jungle music, but it's also helping me understand jazz now. So
Well, and similarly, like we got into the Scatolites with Obi, and we still need to go back and we want to do an episode with him where we follow up with the Scatolites members post Scatolites career,
Oh, nice.
and kind of get into those records, their solo stuff, the Soul Brothers, Soul Vendors, all the Supersonics, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, just having these guys as help just add context to what would otherwise just be like a fun conversation of ska fans. Like it's still just a fun conversation of ska fans, but yeah, I don't know. They offer guidance. They offer interest, you know.
Yeah. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed listening to your series. So you're up to what number now?
oh gosh. We,
70 something. Is that right?
I honestly have no idea.
Something like
If you told me it was 90 or if you told me it was 22, I'd believe you.
that.
Head on over to hornpod.org and count our episodes.
There we go.
real
No, I'll
fast.
get.
Well, the part of the problem is we've also got like there's all kinds of numbering conventions. We started
Yeah.
with episode 0. We also have the offbeat ones where like once we just did an episode about Star Wars and another time.
Right. Yeah.
Or like, yeah, I
Uh,
think we did a tribute to Toots when he passed. Yeah.
So the numbering is
Um,
misleading, maybe.
we have 44 official episodes, but then then all those
but then
ancillary.
10 with the slackers and a handful of other diversions.
So there we go. Brings us at 70.
Love it.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Probably not.
It's
No.
generous. We'll take it. I don't know.
How about you guys? What kind of big highlights would you list? Because I'm telling you, I'm looking at your
Yeah.
guest list, and you
Well,
have a lot to choose from.
I mean, and Junior and I talk about this all the time, and we're very thankful. And I mean, Junior, what would you say? I know it's tough to narrow down, but I mean, the legends are always right. Are
Yeah, especially I learned a lot of things from Derek Morgan, because he said he Skia really started with Lloyd Knibbs when he changed the style from American style drumming to South African style drumming. That's technically and officially when Skia started. But
Okay.
most of the other drummers who were playing American style drumming in the
Sure.
early the R&B style drumming.
Mhm.
Right.
Jump blues. Yeah.
Yes, but he figured his calculation is Lloyd Knibbs
Lloyd Knibb.
when the Scatolites really started,
hmm
and yeah, so that's kind of memorable. I met Courtney.
Oh,
Courtney
Courtney from
Minor.
Culture Beat Records. Yeah, there was a record store
Yeah,
down here.
Stranger Paul.
Yeah.
Another memorable one.
Carlos
Carlos Mark
Malcolm.
talk about the history and the evolution of music
Yeah,
and the recording industry.
right.
Yeah, when he worked at RJR. A lot of memorable ones.
And Larry,
But those ones stood out.
we had Larry
There are a
McDonald.
couple of ones that I utterly dislike. That woman from England. I tried to.
Just didn't get along with her, huh?
The questions were scripted, and so I think I asked her the same question twice, and she really got pissed off.
Uh, but
Um,
Larry McDonald and Val Douglas were great from Scatolites.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Just on the legends front, Norma Frazier and Susan
Mhm.
Cottigan. Keith and Tex with Rudy Mills. We interviewed Jackie Robinson of the Pioneers.
Yes.
And then kind of on the two-tone front, one of our early ones was Linville Golden, who Linville
Mhm.
loves to talk and has some great stories.
Yeah.
The late Jerry Miller from the Untouchables we spoke with.
Yeah.
Norwood Fisher from Fishbone, incredible stories. One of my one of the funniest stories about James Brown, which we encourage everyone to listen to that.
I don't think I heard that one.
Oh, you
I'll
gotta.
have to pull it up.
It's such a funny story he tells. Karina from Dancehall Crashers. We talked to Don Letts. And that was a funny one too. And it was right before Don did the Grammy Museum event that we also worked on a little bit. And the funny thing is Don jumps on and he says, I don't know anything about ska. Why am I here? Basically, it was great.
What?
But that was a fun one. Also Monty Alexander, was a great one. And then, and then members of Virginia, Hepcat and Ocean 11 and Aggrolites and Jesse from Aggrolites even helped do the jingle that we have. And he cuts my hair. Wags the barber cuts my hair now.
Oh, nice.
And
Isn't
then
he a great interview?
Linval,
Yeah.
Linval too. Linval of the specials.
yeah, Linville was a really, really fun one.
Yeah, he really brought context on many levels, politically, socially,
Yeah,
and of course musically. He
Right.
dived into the history of two-tone.
right.
That one was extremely informative.
Yes.
Do you guys ever get a guest or have you had a guest where you just didn't want to stop talking? You just like it
Oh,
just
a lot of them. A lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, some of them, past 2 hour mark. And I think Courtney from Culture Beat was probably 2.5. And we realized that might be good for us, but maybe a little long for the guests.
Yeah.
Sorry, for the guests or for the listeners. But then we also very fortunate too. We did a few kind of reunion ones where we got some of the members of Donkey Show together. Hilliard was on that one, and Matt Parker. And then we did one earlier this year or late last year with the guys from Let's Go Bowling, who
Oh,
just
hell yeah.
just reunited as well. Members of the Cover Ups, and then Junior. I think this was even your idea, but we also did a few roundtables where we had a bunch of different DJs from the scene.
Right.
We did we've done a few Latin ska panel discussions. Because the reality is, and you guys know this, our time is limited, right? Much like yours. And so we try to maximize some of these episodes with them.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, we have a lot of fun doing it, and again, I think legends and the more that we can do, we don't do tons of new bands. We have a few that are kind of on the press junket, so to speak.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And we tend to lean more into the more traditional, side of things, because that's what
Yeah.
Junior and I are the biggest.
Well, you're a history show, aren't you?
Yeah, try to.
You got the mandate.
Junior,
Yeah. We're not called the president of LA Ska,
what-
so don't hold us to
Yeah,
anything.
stick around a few more years and maybe we'll talk about you.
There you go. Junior, what did I miss?
We'll talk about who you were.
Right, no, exactly.
Huh?
Did I miss any? I mean, I know that we didn't talk about everyone, but
No, yeah, and I feel a sense of unfairness that we didn't mention everyone.
um, but yeah,
I know Maytones was pretty good. He
oh yeah, Vernon
um,
Maytone was a good
filled
one.
in right.
Right,
Vernon Maytone,
Yeah.
Maytone, original member, filled in the history of reggae in Clarendon, how it got started,
Yes,
culture, Glen Washington. I thought it was very, very good
Indeed.
for my knowledge.
yeah,
Right. So I enjoy the series we have with a lot of people from the Southern California scene.
yeah.
Mhm.
There's a few that we had a couple that we started interviewing, and then for whatever reason, technical difficulties or whatever reason didn't come to
Sure.
fruition. But we hope to bring those back around. But
So let me ask you guys a question as the experts on LA Ska, ostensibly. What do you see as Los Angeles's contribution to ska music, big picture wise? From the Untouchables and Fishbone and Hepcat, and I guess you can maybe count other parts of Southern California. That's up to you.
Oh, dude,
Yeah.
I have an answer.
well, I mean, I think I think for mainstream, people would say the Orange County ska scene, right? The No Doubts and the
Sure.
Save Ferris and the Real Big Fishes, right? Which clearly is true, right?
I mean, no
But
denying that. Yeah.
you can't deny that. But I feel on the traditional side of things and to recreate, right, some of the foundation and the original, right, Scatolites sound, so to speak, or even some of the rocksteady, bands like Hepcat and Jumbo Joey and Ocean 11 and and now Aggrolites who came out of the scene, and I know you guys have spoken. You did episodes on Skinhead reggae as well,
Mhm.
and so introducing fans right to that music. I mean, you also I talk about my gateway. Say what you will, whether you like or not Sublime, but Sublime was the gateway
Yeah.
for reggae for a lot, and the whole Cali
Sure.
reggae scene is the gateway for a
I
lot.
mean, Sublime is the start of an entire subgenre of reggae now.
100%, and that whole scene has become like almost like the Deadhead, that whole jam scene, really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. Yeah.
But Junior, what would you say?
Um, I think California is California Ska is really and truly the gateway for Ska, the headquarters for Ska in perhaps without a doubt the United States. Because I remember in New York, I didn't hear much Ska, if hardly any.
Yeah.
And, yeah,
Jay from the Slackers
and
was
there
just
were
telling us that New York is not really a place for ska.
no, and at least I think I would say there were like at the most 4 bands in New York when I left,
Mhm.
and that's probably pushing it. But when I came here, I'd hear you're on the radio. I'd hear songs that I wasn't sure if they were Ska, but people would call them Ska until
Yeah.
I ran into Eric now. Then he started taking me to the sea route. I'd hear real Ska, and
Yeah.
I remember saying to myself, I think this is a good choice, especially when I heard horns, brass, because I have a passion for that genre.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Gotta
Trombone.
have the real horns. Can't do that synth
Yeah.
business, right?
Man, I heard some guys out here say, yeah, where these guys come from? So I said, yeah, I think Los Angeles, Southern California is the right place. And there were many bands, Riverside, Debonaires.
Yeah. Oh
Los
yeah.
Angeles,
Debonaires
Ocean
are
11.
so good.
Love that band.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Well,
Eric, I totally agree with what you were saying. Like I think the neo-traditionalism is the real. I mean, yes, the diversity, like you're saying, Junior, is I think like the crowning achievement of LA. But like I think what LA did that no one else can do or has
Right.
done is the neo-trad stuff, the playing it exactly the way it was
Mhm.
done back then. You just don't see that many bands coming from one city. Yeah, and I think there's value to that. I think there's value to being truly retro. I'm all about mixing genres. I'm all about pushing the boundaries, but I think there's still value to doing it right.
I think that there's absolutely something to that, and like Hepcat for sure deserves most of the credit for the surviving traditional ska scene anywhere in the world. I think like Hepcat really deserves a lot of credit for this.
And the harmonies and the dance moves
Yes.
and everything, Greg and Alex and them all. Yeah, I agree.
But even that
there's
kind of like
there's also
Joey.
something a little more. There's more to Hepcat than that though, and the same with the Aggrolites. And I think that there's like a polish, like a show business professionalism that LA contributes. It's not only the focused like traditional style, it's also the showmanship. Like
Well,
it's because it's a
the
showbiz town.
Yeah.
And
the
so
spectacle
like
that they on stage.
right. And I think that there's something, I mean, baked into Los Angeles from an outsider's perspective, where like it's like there's like a sense of entertainment where like you're doing it right because everybody's doing it here. So like and honestly, like I played a Blue Beat Lounge show that
wow.
went disastrously once, and I had a terrible set. And Chris gave me like a hard little talking to, and he's like, "You can't like this is Los Angeles. These people see the absolute best every single day of the week."
Yeah.
So just know what you're coming to who you're coming to
wow.
entertain. Like,
Yeah,
and that was a rough thing for me to hear from a guy I looked up to, but it was absolutely true.
Yeah. No, that's a great point.
Additionally, too, I think the musicians in Southern California, the players of instrument, should really and truly be credited, because I remember when Alton came here, one of the times when he came, when we supported that show in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
And Alton heard the musician. Everyone was nervous. And when Alton heard the first song, he said, "Well, let me hear you guys." He said, "Man,
Oh,
you
it was
guys have this
expanders.
thing."
The expanders were back.
Yes, he said, "Right." He said, "You guys have this thing down to a science. I don't need to sing all the song. What I'll do, intro and outro. We don't need any more rehearsal." And I realized for the first time that the Los Angeles musicians were really and truly on another level
Well, and
in comparison to other places
and
at that time.
Derek
We're
Morgan
talking about
said,
this
yeah,
approximately 2 decades ago or more.
right. And Derek Morgan
Right.
said that as well. I mean, it's some of the best backing musicians. I mean,
Right. Ethiopians too. Ethiopian Leonard Dillon
Leonard Dillon,
said
right.
that there's a song that no one could get the percussion because musician was playing a battle in the studio because they didn't have early Jamaican music wasn't driven by percussion. And one of the guys from the Expanders, I think, found out exactly what was being done and duplicated
Wow.
identical.
Yeah.
Ethiopian said this hadn't been done hardly anywhere else.
Right.
He was amazed when he heard. So
Yeah.
we have to really and truly give credit to the musicians in Los Angeles.
Well, and now
Absolutely.
Steady 45s have been just
Yeah.
Yes.
incredibly and just killing it on backing.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example of like a band that's exactly in the tradition that
Yeah.
I'm talking about,
Right,
you
right.
know?
Yeah.
The other thing which Junior and I are not as close to it, but we've interviewed musicians from the scene is such the vibrant Latin ska scene here.
Right.
Because
Mhm.
I mean, those shows arguably draw the most. And some of that is, some of the same bands that will play Mexico City and other Latin American countries, but that's a massive scene.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard people say that not only does Los Angeles have a bigger ska scene than anywhere else in the United States, it has several bigger ska scenes
Right.
than anywhere
Yeah.
else in the United States.
Yeah.
Which is
when you say
just
headquarters, I think I really like that as a name for you guys. Yeah.
yeah.
But
It's like a crossroads.
all that said, there is a challenge with getting, and maybe this is how fans here are jaded, right? And spread out, right? But it is tough to get fans to turn out to a lot of these shows.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing. The legend shows that the Skymania shows that Junior, does so much of. It's a grind to get fans to come out. To get 400, 500 people there. So it's. But but it's important. Clearly, I mean, promoters are only going to keep booking ska if they're financially successful, right?
Yeah.
So it's a challenge with it, like everything, right?
Yeah.
And the shows are not financially successful.
It's tough.
That stinks to
Yeah,
hear.
hardly.
It is
Mm.
tough. Yeah. So Matt and JJ, what would you say? So we're almost halfway through the decade. What would you say were some of the highlights, and it can be highlights from a happy or sad standpoint, I guess, really
Mhm.
over the first half of the decade?
Let's start with bad news first. I mean, I feel like we're in an era where we're losing a lot of our heroes,
so
which is
many.
not a great part of this decade so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And during COVID, right? I mean, some of the
I mean,
legends,
COVID was definitely a big part of it. Yeah, like
Toots
COVID took
passed,
Toots and Lee Scratch Perry, and
Bunny
I don't know if
Wailer.
I don't think he had COVID, but it was during COVID.
Right.
Right.
Bunny Wailer passed. Then you were
Mhm.
um a number of the two. I mean, Terry
But
Hall.
Yeah,
apart from Toots, none of those guys died from
No.
I
Not
think
from
Toots.
COVID. Right.
I think Toots had COVID.
Might have
Yeah.
been. Yeah.
Am I wrong? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah,
important to
that's
me.
what I read that up to yesterday that he had COVID.
Okay.
To me, I think a big highlight is, and not that anybody's like, it's not my favorite kind of ska by any means, but I'm just seeing a lot of like youthful, poppy, popular seeming new bands popping up. Like I'm just seeing it everywhere I look. And they seem to be killing it, and it just makes me very happy to see that it's still going on.
Yeah.
It's not
I
even
think
just going on. Like there's definitely a resurgence happening.
Yes.
right.
Yes.
And like I think when this decade kind of started, or at least right around the time that we started the show, we were kind of the ska scene was getting into kind of a oh hey, remember when we were getting a little boost from like everybody being like, hey, remember when we listened to ska? Wasn't that silly? Like the documentary came out, the Aaron Carnes book came out. Everybody was kind of like having like a little reflective, redemptive moment, you know.
Yeah, I do
And
think that like the beginning of the 2020s was marked by and even the end of the 2010s, because Pick It Up Ska in the 90s, that documentary was in 2019, earlier in
Yeah.
2019. Like there's been a lot of like reckoning with the third wave lately. Like it's a nostalgia, but it's like a defensive nostalgia. I mean, it's right in the name of a podcast and a book, but there's like a defensive nostalgia to it
Right.
in a way that like everybody's like, no, we're putting the checkers back on. We're getting the dancing shoes out of the closet. And it's like it's infectious, undeniably,
Yeah.
and it's catchy. And I think a lot of ska now, I think a lot of ska culture is online, part of because like at this time is when the pandemic hit.
Sure. Right.
And that's when like you started seeing all kinds of online collaborations. Like the ska scene is so much more collaborative than it used to be.
Yes. And a lot of
Like
that, you're right. A lot of that happened during COVID too, right?
and like random super groups forming across all around the world
Oh, yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
became real bands. Like Rude Girl Review, I don't
Sure,
think
sure.
like that might have happened without the pandemic, but I feel like that's a thing that happens when people have a lot of time online and can only meet each other online.
Right. Good point.
It's like
And
I think
reunions. Like a lot of bands are getting back together too. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's true.
But I'm not sure if there's a revival on the traditional ska side. If
hard
anything,
to
I think
say.
it's a decline.
Yeah.
I
And
think
that might
because
come
there's more
along.
money, a lot of musicians are inclined to move on to form reggae bands. I've seen that quite a bit out here in California.
I
There's no
feel
money in
like
ska, so we move on.
I feel like there was a kind of ska jazz neo trad pushback to the ska punk of the third wave, but it took like a few years of moon ska like really amping up a new sound before like ska jazz ensemble could form, you know? Like I think we might need to like I think there might be like a trailblazer and then a retro catch up kind of
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's
balancing act to it.
that's a good point. Right.
I
Yeah.
hope, because I agree with you. I want more of that. I want there to be like more early reggae, you know, rocksteady stuff awareness, because
Yeah.
that's the
I
groove I
think it's
want, you
going the way
know.
of the dinosaurs. I don't, because it's not
I
economically
hope so.
feasible for these musicians to maintain themselves and play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Definitely.
yeah, rock steady roots are really falling off the edge, falling over the cliff.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be hard to start a band with that sound and to make a case that like you're gonna have a big audience to draw from. Now there is a worldwide audience to draw from.
Sure. Sure.
LA might be a great
yes.
might be the only city where you can make a viable chance at that. But like, yeah, I could see almost any other city being like a real hard case to be made. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. JJ, to your first point, 100%. I mean, if you look at what the Interrupters have done way in that ska banner, right, and getting opening slots on for some mainstream rock acts, and then everything that Bad Time Records has been doing. I mean, on the ska, let's call it ska punk or ska pop side of things.
Yeah.
Even here, throughout SoCal with Half Past Two and Bite Me Bambi, and I love the female fronted, right, a lot more of that, which I think is good, and I think overall, more inclusive, in that sense. But yeah, I'd love to see more on the traditional side of things happen as well. Reunions, there's definitely been a few of those just recently at the Greg Lee tribute. A few weeks back, Let's Go Bowling reunited, Ocean 11 reunited, coming out of
Love to hear it.
Nick. No Doubt, obviously, just reunited for Coachella.
Yeah.
Skavuvi for a Supernova.
Yes, right, and actually in
They're
Supernova
amazing.
in general, right? I mean, really over the last few years, Tim and April.
Supernova is a big part of American ska's story the last few years,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah,
I think
and
going forward
it will
too.
continue to grow.
Wow,
It really sheds a ray of hope and light.
it's true.
Yeah,
Yes.
I really and truly want that to grow.
Yeah,
And I feel
we
like I feel like I've said this enough recently, but like it feels like I don't know. Supernova feels like we've joined, like America is joining the ranks of the international ska community. Like
Well,
it's finally a festival worthy of like the international ska
International, yeah.
festivals.
Because if you look at Europe and throughout the UK, I mean, massive festival.
Yeah. Or Mexico or South
Mexico, correct.
America
Yeah.
or yeah.
Yeah,
When we were just talking with Dunya Best and John Roy on our last episode,
that was great.
and joking that well, half joking that we really need a Supernova West
I know,
festival.
I know. But Junior and I talk about that all the time, and
yeah, and our friend Sean had a brilliant idea.
I know.
But
Maybe someday. Maybe someday. I'm gonna keep until then. I'll keep playing the lottery too. But and on the sad front, I mean, just this year alone, between Jerry Miller of the Untouchables and Greg Lee
Mhm.
and Dan Bower, who
Yeah.
was such a big part of the skinhead reggae scene here. Um, a number of two-tone legends, Terry Hall and Gaps, and even Rankin Roger a few years back, and yeah,
Well, I remember us saying some really nice words about Jason Lawless in our early days,
Yeah.
who is
yeah.
similar to all of us, somebody that really likes to put their fanship
No,
on the
he was
line and really spend a lot of time doing it. I really respect the hell out of him.
he was big. He was big for the scene, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, he did that
Right.
on many levels.
True. Um, yeah, and then a number of legends. And Junior, thanks to you. I mean, right? Pioneers, Derek Morgan, Stranger Cole.
Yeah, they all passed through.
Music
Cotton on
Factory.
his shoes,
Yeah.
Norman Fraser.
Carlton in his shoes. Holy cow. Are you serious?
Yeah,
Yeah, Cotton came through.
That's so awesome. That's not a name you would expect as like a band to like be together, you know?
Melodians multiple times.
Ooh, I would love to see the
Next you're gonna tell me you
Melodians.
saw JoJo and the Fugitives play or something.
Yeah, yeah, not out here, unfortunately.
Carlton and his shoes. Holy
I know.
cow.
I know, right? Yeah. So what are you guys most excited about for next year and beyond? Anything you're anticipating
Oh man.
most?
Um
I don't think a
Besides
lot about
besides
the
Supernova, which
future
we're all
of
excited
of my
about.
life.
yeah,
I don't
look
think a lot
forward to
about the future of
things.
my life. I don't know. I am looking forward to Supernova. I got my VIP ticket for Supernova 2025.
Nice.
Wow,
Um,
such
No, honestly, I
discipline.
really am looking forward to. Matt's going to be playing St. Louis here. I plan on hanging out with the kid, seeing if
cool.
we get along in
I
real life.
I'm playing my first ska show since 2018, and it's in St. Louis, Missouri, home of JJ Loy.
Nice.
Yeah,
Wow.
dude, I tell you what. So yeah, Ningwid Records is doing a what's it called? A Midwest Ska Festival. Is it called Scala Days?
I might be, yeah.
But yeah, it's shaping up. A lot of
Uh-huh.
local bands, a lot of Midwest bands coming through. Yeah, the St. Louis ska scene booming right now, like really happening right now.
I feel like
There's
that's
Any
everywhere. Actually, I was
any traditional band from the Rocksteady or Ska scene on that show, on that festival?
on
uh
that particular one,
there's
no, I don't think.
Boomtown United dabbles.
Boomtown plays more of a like they play a
Two-tone-ish.
two-tone early 80s kind of thing, very traditionally
Um,
in that sense,
Okay.
but not traditional ska, quote unquote.
they'll
Not
get there
Jamaican
soon.
music.
They'll get there.
They're very of a particular time and sound. Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to see uh, more, more, more and deeper, from a lyrical content standpoint, right? More protest songs, some more.
Oh, I feel like we're in store for some of
I
that,
know,
right?
Yes.
right? Yeah.
I
Uh,
feel like we need a new Clash to come through. Someone that's can be popular, someone that can connect to ska, but maybe is not
Not
100% ska.
not burdened with the ska label so they can thrive beyond the ska scene.
And
right.
you need a band that can ride that line of standing up for what they say without being too virtue signally. Like these are tough times. Like you can't just say
We definitely don't need more slogans and more virtue signaling. That's for sure.
But I
But we
also think
do
we need somebody that's
need
not afraid to be virtue signaling. Like I think
But
we need,
but American
bravery.
ska bands don't have a history of taking a stand against anything. And
Right.
um,
Right.
I mean, if you were to compare them with, um, even, for instance, Prince Buster in the early days, and then the selected and the special.
Yeah.
If you know, historically, American band who plays ska rocksteady, more beachy, la 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 la.
I mean, in the Slackers' defense, they have a lot of very political music.
Yeah.
All right, so I take that.
Slackers, you're right.
And obviously there's
Don't
examples
be afraid to
elsewhere,
push
but
back
like,
because I don't.
but you're generally speaking, you're absolutely right. I agree. Also, shout out the prize fighters too. The prize
Oh, yeah,
fighters
yeah.
write good ass working class solidarity,
Yes. Good point.
political songs.
I think
And
about
they do very like traditional as possible 60s vintage.
Yeah.
Jamaican.
Great group for sure.
I think about bands like Os Mutantes in the 60s, under like a military dictatorship in Brazil. And they were very genre fusion. They were kind of putting together this like Tropicalia sound, kind of a psychedelic, kind of rebellious thing. But they weren't, it was a pretty strict dictatorship. People were being killed. Like you can't just sing out against the government. You can't just be explicit like that. And so they kind of couched everything in nonsense, kind of coded things. I feel like we need something like that now. We need something that can get past our bullshit detectors, but also like matter. And I don't know how to do that, but you know what I mean? Like I want this, and I want it to come from ska. This music has a long history of being rebellious and sometimes progressive. I will say I like that we don't have that regressive. I don't see a bunch of like boneheads at the shows and things like that. I don't
right-wing presence in ska music.
I'm not getting that like
great.
That's true.
yeah.
That's true.
But I would like to see that leftist rebellious tradition amplified, and I would like to see it successful. That's my hope for.
Same here.
During the ska era, there was a lot of pushback in the ska scene for progressive music because the two leading producers were Duke Reed and Coxsone. And
Yeah,
Duke Reed really anti songs, and you couldn't make any mention of Rasta.
right.
Well, they had to be very sneaky with their Rasta songs.
So there was a lot of pushback.
There is a history of conservatism too. I'm not trying to like ignore that part, but the part that responds to me is the progressive. Yeah.
Prince Buster, he was one of the leading architects when it comes to singing about day-to-day issues.
Yeah.
And taking it started. Buster led.
Yeah.
Yeah. The real rebellion did come with reggae, didn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah. True.
I mean, yeah, there's nothing anywhere in ska that compares to like a Peter Tosh.
Right.
Right.
Even Peter Tosh's ska
including
songs.
Peter Tosh's ska songs, yes.
Right. And some great ones at that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll also see some unique and fun collaborations. And I also love those unexpected moments. And you guys talked a little bit about this, I think on your most recent, the debrief of Supernova, but to hear and see the pioneers. Sorry. So when we had the pioneers at the Glass House here, Linville Golden was in town. Linville got on stage and said, if it wasn't for these guys, there'd be no specials, two-tone, right? So a moment like that, right, priceless. And I think something similar happened at Supernova. And then also seeing Pauline Black meet Jackie Robinson for the first time in person at Supernova.
Yeah.
I mean, those moments are priceless to see, whether to see it in person or on stage or on video. Like
legends within legends, right?
Legends within legends. Yeah.
And that's a moment that's like the whole ska scene has that moment. That like Pauline Black meeting Jackie Robinson is a moment that all of us have now.
No, it's true. It's true. And I would love to see more of that because as we know, no one's getting younger. So a big shout out to everyone who's doing their little part, right, to help further the scene here and give us this wonderful platform here, right, to celebrate. So,
yes,
I love that we all have it in common. I love that there's still people that want to listen to shows like ours because we've got a real particular kind of community, and I think it needs stuff like this to bring it together. Yeah.
Any obviously we can keep going, but any thoughts that we've not shared, guys, Junior and JJ, Matt, that you want to get across?
No, I'm just excited to have been doing it for 5 years. I really can't believe it. I'm super happy about it. Yeah.
We are elder statesmen of the ska media landscape.
We will spare you from listening to us sing you happy birthday for your podcast.
That's in the weeks ahead, right? As a matter of fact, coming up soon. Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
Thanksgiving is when we dropped our first 3 episodes.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Happy fifth anniversary?
Yeah,
Yeah.
5th anniversary.
That's amazing.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
You guys got to be coming up on that too, right?
Next July, so July of 25 will be
Okay.
our 5th anniversary. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And we're gonna do more have a couple more things planned for Grammy Museum, little panel discussions and other fun things. So
How did you guys get connected to the Grammy Museum? Is it something you already had, or did
No,
they just go looking for someone with ska knowledge?
uh,
Like, I don't know how this works.
great question. So I'm thankful that my career that is concert marketing and sponsorship, through some connections there, I'm able to use to blend and merge with my passion here and helping do whatever I can on the Jamaican music side of things. So I knew I know somebody at the museum there, so just pitched the idea the junior had.
But so we went to an event here, and it shall remain nameless, and for many reasons. So I said, Eric, we can really do something scary here, and they won't criticize us for imitating what they did. And Eric
No one's
said,
gonna laugh at us.
I have the right connection. I know someone, and just like that, we're in.
Yeah. So the first one was we kept it pretty, let's call it LA traditional, with Lewis from Steady Beat, Joey Altruda, Greg Lee, Persephone from Ocean
my God.
Eleven, Brian Boom Boom Dixon from Aggrolites.
Foundation.
Oh wait, I think I saw this.
I think that's fun. Yeah, and that's actually they're online.
Yeah.
If fans go to our Instagram profile page on History of LA Ska, that one was our first one. And then
the response was awesome.
Yeah, and then we did the second one with like Tazy from Ska Parade and Angelo Wagner and yeah. Anyways, we've done a few, and then right out of COVID, we did one that was a little different, where we partnered with Mark Wasserman and Howard Parr, and they both promoted their books, and we had a bunch of the Box Boys, which is LA's first ska band, actually perform.
Yeah.
Untouchables performed. So yeah, no, we're very thankful and had a lot of fun. So more of that.
That's very cool.
More of that to come too. So, but no, this has been a great time, and for our ska podcast crossover.
Yes.
Yeah.
The meeting of giants.
Yeah. A lot of times, the rightness of place, just being in Southern California, where there are so many musicians, that we have access to these places.
I love it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, a wide variety of musicians. It really makes a difference.
True.
And I'm discovering that every day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And apologies for any of our guests that we've not mentioned.
They
We
can't all be the
appreciate
best
everyone.
episodes, right?
I don't know. I made a list and I've named all 117 people I meant to. So
Okay, guys, I really do got to split. I hate to do it to you, but
No, we're good. This has been a lot of fun, and we appreciate everyone listening and watching.
yes.
And with that, we're going to leave you, Junior. Thank
Yes.
you, Matt, JJ. Please subscribe to this podcast series and listen to the History of LA Ska on Instagram. We do encourage everyone to please do your part to celebrate and preserve the scene. And come on out, enjoy yourself, and put on your dancing shoes. JJ and Matt.
We should also encourage people to listen to Hornpod.
Yes, Hornpod. Hornpod.
Yes.
Stream it everywhere. Hornpod.org.
There we go. Until next time, we're going to meet in person someday, guys.
Yes.
Thanks,
Awesome.
everyone. Junior, thanks. Matt, JJ, take care, everyone.
thanks, guys.
Bye-bye now.
Thanks.